50 years of history, 5 decades of colorful heroes, giant robots, and epic fights that defined generations. But what if all of that is about to end? On October 30th, 2025, a shocking report broke the hearts of Tokusatsu fans. The legendary Super Sentai franchise might be coming to an end. Yes, the possible end of one of Japan's most iconic series. The very one that inspired Power Rangers and shaped the childhoods of millions around the world. According to rumors, Toei and Bandai may be planning to end the current format of the franchise due to declining sales and popularity. What was once a symbol of innovation and success now seems to be losing its power. But are we really witnessing the end of Super Sentai or the beginning of something new? In this video, we're diving deep into the story to understand the causes, the consequences, and what the future might hold. We'll revisit the franchise's glorious past, analyze the numbers that worry Bandai, and uncover what could be behind this so-called announced death. Get ready, because what we're about to reveal might forever change the way you see Super Sentai. This could be the final morph in history. But before we begin, if you're a fan of Power Rangers and Super Sentai, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our content. Is this the sad end of the Super Sentai franchise? Well, on October 30th, 2025, a piece of news shocked Tokusatsu fans. The report stated, "It was revealed on the 30th, through interviews with those involved, that TV Asahi's Super Sentai series will come to an end with the season currently airing. The popular show, which began with Himitsu Sentai Goranger in 1975, will conclude after half a century of history." The article was first published by Kyoto News, and it immediately raised doubts as the information was extremely vague.
However, the situation escalated when Oricon, one of Japan's most respected entertainment outlets, republished the story. That's when fans began to panic. Even former Super Sentai actors shared the article, spreading the rumor further. To understand this better, we have to go back in time a little, to early 2024, when Bandai's president publicly expressed concern about disappointing sales figures. In one of his statements, he said, "The current state of the Super Sentai franchise is very serious, as its popularity is not growing compared to the past. Children today spend less time watching television, and their interest in products like Super Sentai has decreased. It's important to strengthen the connection between kids and our products. Beyond TV broadcasts, we need to release videos online, organize activities in schools and kindergartens, and boost in-store events and exposure. We must create new opportunities that encourage children to watch the show on TV."
So, could Super Sentai really be ending because it's no longer profitable? Well, maybe not exactly. Let's take a look at what happened with the Kamen Rider franchise. It began in 1971 and ran until 1988, ending with Kamen Rider Black RX. After that, there were 3 movies released during festival events, and then nothing. Until the year 2000, when a new project meant to honor the original series gave birth to Kamen Rider Kuga. It was a success, followed by Kamen Rider Agito, which also performed well. And since then, the franchise has continued uninterrupted for the past 25 years. In other words, it went through a major reform, and that change brought it back to life, generating huge profits for the companies involved. Unfortunately, from Toei and Bandai's perspective, Super Sentai hasn't been able to reinvent itself in the same way. Even though new annual series are still being released, including the current Goju-jur, the storylines just aren't resonating with audiences. So, after 50 years of history, it seems Toei is reaching a point where renewal might be necessary. Goju-jur has been struggling to deliver in terms of story, audience engagement, and especially sales, unlike Ultraman and Kamen Rider, which continue to perform strongly in both popularity and merchandise sales. Unfortunately, year after year, Super Sentai has been showing lower than expected results, and ever since Toei, Sentai, Hasbro, and Power Rangers parted ways, profits have dropped even more. meaning the brand's value has declined significantly. Then, on October 1st, 2025, Toei released an official statement on its website announcing a complete restructuring of its audiovisual division, which likely has a direct connection to the rumored end of Super Sentai. Apparently, the goal is to end the current production and business structure, redesigning it into something new that better appeals to younger audiences, the core demographic of both Toei and Bandai. This isn't speculation, it's an officially acknowledged fact. Both companies have stated that their primary target is the youth market, even though the Tokusatsu format has a strong appeal among adult fans. Since they feel they're no longer reaching that audience effectively, a rebranding might be a logical and necessary step. After all, as we've seen before, Tokusatsu properties have gone through rough patches before recovering. Kamen Rider is a perfect example of this, and Ultraman also experienced a hiatus before being reimagined into one of Bandai's most profitable modern franchises. So, when people talk about the end of Super Sentai, it might actually mean the end of its current model and the beginning of a new, restructured phase. It could mean a new name, a new style, and a new kind of storytelling, something fresh that we've never seen in Super Sentai before. And there's no denying it, the separation between Power Rangers and Bandai created a massive financial gap. When Super Sentai and Power Rangers were still under Bandai's umbrella, all earnings were counted together as one brand. Once that partnership ended, and Power Rangers was no longer directly linked to Super Sentai, Bandai's profits dropped drastically. Since 2019, when the partnership between these brands ended, Bandai has no longer profited from Power Rangers the way it once did. It's estimated that sales of Super Sentai-related toys have dropped by more than 70%. Another major issue, in my opinion, is that the Super Sentai series cannot be broadcast worldwide due to licensing contracts. When Power Rangers was acquired by Hasbro, distribution rights were restricted to prevent competition between these two similar products. In other words, if Super Sentai continues operating in the same way, it won't be able to expand globally. Its reach will remain extremely limited. That's why it seems that Toei's goal is to recreate the franchise under a new structure and a new name, so this new business model can expand across the world. We're already seeing something similar with Kamen Rider Gotchard, which is being streamed globally, opening up merchandising opportunities for audiences of all nationalities. So perhaps this really is the time for Super Sentai to reinvent itself as a business. What I mean is that this supposed end of Super Sentai might not actually be an end, but rather a new beginning. We can't forget that Super Sentai, even if it's not performing as strongly as before, still works. It's still one of Japan's top-selling franchises. Unfortunately, it's just not meeting its expected numbers. Therefore, renewal, not complete termination, seems to be the best path forward. A sad example to compare is Metal Hero, which was truly discontinued. Some of its ideas were later absorbed into Kamen Rider, which is why RX is so different from Black. Over time, the two concepts evolved together into what we know today. It could be that Super Sentai will start mixing in new elements or letting go of old staples, like always having 5 color-coded heroes, giant robots, and shallow villains, aspects that may have distanced it from modern audiences. In the past, villains were better developed. Maybe that's something that needs to return. Even Shinichiro Shirakura, an executive producer at Toei, has publicly stated that Super Sentai needs to reinvent itself because audiences are no longer connecting with it the same way. So with a new product and a fresh start, Toei could explore new directions and free itself from the restrictions that have been holding Super Sentai back. Starting from scratch would also mean freedom from contracts with Hasbro and even TV Asahi, allowing this new series to be broadcast worldwide, with episodes potentially available on YouTube, online platforms, or even streaming services. That would bring much greater reach, which in turn would drive higher sales. It might not carry the Super Sentai name anymore, but by keeping the spirit and foundation of the franchise, this new version could find more freedom and success in Western markets. I'm not saying they should abandon everything and completely reboot it. That would be crazy. But trimming some old concepts and introducing new ideas to refresh the style could make a big difference. Maybe even changing the production model. Instead of 50 episodes per season, cut it down to 25, while maintaining the Super Sentai structure. Shorter, more focused seasons could help audiences connect more deeply with the characters and their gear. They might even consider adjusting the target demographic,
bringing slightly more mature and engaging stories that appeal to adults as well. I don't know exactly what the ideal solution would be, but that leads us to the big question. What's actually going to happen next? Well, there are a few recent reports, though for now they should still be treated as rumors.
We have a few Japanese sources hinting at what might happen after the end of Super Sentai. The first rumor is that this new era will be called Universe Senshi, which roughly translates to Warriors of the Universe. If that's true, we can already notice some of the points we discussed earlier. The word universe is universally understood, meaning they would be aiming for a more global name, just like the Super in Super Sentai was already doing. A good example of this kind of globalized naming is Superman from DC Comics. Years ago, his name used to be translated into different languages, but now Superman is basically a universal brand. The goal was to stop translating it, making the brand more globally recognizable. Since Toei and Bandai's plan is likely to expand into as many countries as possible, rebranding the franchise with a globally friendly name is already a solid first step. Another rumor suggests that the first story in this new series will feature only 3 heroes. There have been several Tokusatsu shows with 3 hero teams, even within Super Sentai itself, like Aba Ranger, which initially had just the blue, yellow, and red Rangers. But according to this particular rumor, it won't just be 3 heroes, it'll be 3 armored heroes. This could mean they're planning to incorporate elements from the Metal Hero franchise into this new version. There's also speculation that they might draw inspiration from Kamen Rider as well, since, as I mentioned earlier, that franchise has been performing strongly in both popularity and toy sales. It's not necessarily about repeating the same formula. It's more about taking the elements that do work and refreshing them for this new series. In addition, other rumors suggest that the upcoming seasons will be shorter, much like Ultraman has been recently, running for around 20-something episodes while still performing well in collectible sales. The strategy of reducing the episode count makes sense, especially since Western audiences tend to prefer faster-paced shows that don't drag on too long. A smaller, more cohesive season, lasting about 6 months, allowing for 2 seasons per year, could actually generate more profit, more characters, more products, more crossovers, and much more overall. It also simplifies production. Shorter seasons allow for quicker feedback from viewers, meaning the next installments can be adjusted and improved based on audience response. Now, continuing with the rumors, it's being said that the first theme of this new series will be magic. This speculation has been circulating for a while now, with talk about a possible magic school setting. We've already seen Maji Ranger, Kamen Rider Wizard, and even Ninja touch on magical or mystical elements. Several tokusatsu series have explored this theme before, so there's plenty of inspiration to draw from. Apparently, official news is expected to drop in December. It's common for tokusatsu announcements to surface toward the end of the year, revealing details about upcoming shows and new seasons. So far, nothing official has been released, but it seems likely that by December, things will become much clearer. And that makes perfect sense. Gojuger is only a few weeks away from ending. It wouldn't make sense for them to announce the end of Super Sentai while a current series is still airing. That would seriously hurt the ongoing season's performance. So, once this season concludes, the new announcements should start rolling out. One interesting detail is that Gojuger has already been working with the concept of a universal war. It's possible that this theme was designed from the start to expand the story and bring closure, paving the way for something entirely new to begin. Everything seems to point toward this being a planned transition, especially since reports about declining sales have been circulating for over a year. So yes, Gojuger could very well mark the end of Super Sentai as we know it. In short, Super Sentai isn't ending forever. It's ending in its current format, only to be reborn in a new form, as a new product, a new creative vision, and a new business model. So, fellow fans, there's no need to panic. This isn't a final farewell. It's a fresh start for the series we all love. Let's stay hopeful and send out positive energy for whatever amazing things are coming next.
Considering everything, the possible end of Super Sentai shouldn't be seen as the conclusion of an era, but as the beginning of a new chapter. After half a century of stories, colors, and heroes that inspired generations, it's only natural for the franchise to reinvent itself to stay relevant in a world that has changed so much since 1975. Today's children consume content differently, and global audiences demand faster-paced, more engaging narratives that reflect modern times. That's why Toei and Bandai may be preparing for a true rebirth, a transformation that modernizes the format without losing the essence that made Super Sentai a cultural icon in Japan. Even if the name changes, the soul will remain the same: unity, courage, and teamwork, the values that have always defined the series. Just like Kamen Rider and Ultraman before it, this reimagining could mark a powerful new beginning, more global and accessible than ever before. For us fans, this isn't a farewell. It's simply the next morph in a legendary story that still has much to tell. The legacy of Super Sentai will live on through new forms, new heroes, and new dreams.